and unanswered questions, the place of the child, of home and hearth, of the Cayumara, the coyote and the wolf, the sage and the fire. We acknowledge your gifts and ask that you be with us today. We offer this incense to the west direction, the place where spirit goes, the place of closure, of letting go and forgiveness, of wisdom and understanding and knowledge, of the bear, the sweetgrass, the water, and the water panther. We acknowledge your gifts and ask that you be with us today. Turn back to the center. We offer this incense to you, Mother Earth. We thank you for the many blessings you give us every day that nourish us, body, mind, emotions, and spirit. We pledge to care for you in the ways that we know and to learn more. Oh, thank you. May the influence of these directions follow you today and into the rest of your life. We're going to do the procession now. So. Vénganse. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. Yeah, clap. Y'all like that this morning? All right. Absolutely. Let's bring energy into the room. Did you all like the blessing we just had from Linda this morning? Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to Linda Jimenez for what she's doing. She's letting the copal turn out before she comes in to join us this morning. So it is, good morning again, buenos dias. It is wonderful to be in community with you this morning. Again, thank you, Tribal Elder Linda Jimenez, for offering the blessing to start off this morning. I'd like to thank our great college partners and our deep collaboration with the District Staff Senate, the Office of International Programs, and the Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Working Group on our events today and throughout the entire month of November. My name is Dr. Eric Castillo. I am the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the Alamo Colleges District. I'm honored today to be here with students and employees in person and virtually from across the organization to honor and affirm Indigenous and Native communities through impactful programming and events. By highlighting and amplifying important voices, in particular women of color, we can cultivate a district and college culture that affirms and respects all who call the Alamo Colleges District their academic and professional home. This morning's event, Native Women's Voices, Women of the Tāp Pīlam Coahuiltecan Nation, centers and turns our gaze towards the population systemically marginalized and disempowered. Research shows that Native women earn 60 cents to every single dollar earned by white males. Homicide is the third leading cause of death among American Indian and Alaska women between 10 and 24 years old. In the United States and Canada, an average of 40% of those who are impacted by sex trafficking identify as Native American female. But all is not lost. Between 1976 and 2006, the number of American Indian Alaska Native women enrolled in colleges and universities increased by nearly 200%. Particularly notable is the fourfold increase of Native women earning master's, doctoral, and professional degrees over the same time period. Native women-owned businesses grew by a staggering 108% from 1997 to 2013. And as a member of the Pueblo of Laguna and 35th generation New Mexican, Deb Haaland became the first Native American to serve as cabinet secretary for a US president. And as we gather this morning, Nicole Mann, tribal member of the Wailaki of the Round Valley Indian tribes, is the first Native American female in space. And yet, there is so much more to accomplish together. This morning's event is one of our first steps towards amplifying the voices of and working in solidarity with our Native American communities in Yanaguana, San Antonio. Funded by our Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation grant, our event centers voices of those silenced from historical discourse and the contemporary moment. And we underscore a fuller story of this place we call home. We are being invited into a conversation that is a long time coming. So I encourage you to listen with an open heart and an open mind. Before we welcome forward members of the Tāp Pīlam Coahuiltecan Nation, we have a few welcome remarks from our trusted district leaders. I'd like to welcome to the Alamo College District 4 trustee, Dr. Lorraine Pulido, to offer welcome remarks on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Good morning, everyone. How are y'all doing today? Thank you so much for being here today for this very special occasion. It's a blessing to be in the community here with all of you to hear today. I'm here on behalf of the Alamo Colleges Board of Trustees. It's an honor to participate in this event. I'm excited to listen and to bear witness to the perspectives of Native American tribal leaders, and especially hear leaders from our beloved city of San Antonio. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, events and discussions about those particular issues are a powerful reminder that learning never stops. We have an ongoing responsibility to learn about our community, the land on which we gather, we take it for granted, right? And the communities who have been and continue to be stewards of Yanaguana, San Antonio, as Dr. Castillo said earlier. We gather this morning to listen and to learn about Native American identity, land, and representation told through the lens of Native American women. As Dr. Castillo noted, Native American female voices must be amplified in society. So this event is one step in the right direction for equity and justice. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you for hosting such an important event and for bringing the Alamo Colleges in greater partnership with each other and our Native American communities. Thank you.
All right. Trustee Pulido, thank you so much for being here. We know you're super busy and you're doing wonderful things for the organization, so we appreciate you very much. And I have to say, for those who can't see in our virtual world, I also want to send a special welcome to all of you. We have folks that came here from different colleges in person. If you don't mind, if you're from a college that came here this morning in person, would you please stand up? We have people from other colleges. This is deep solidarity. This is deep collaboration, understanding that we are one district community. So I appreciate you so much for showing up in person this morning. It means a lot to us. Thank you. So next, I'd like to welcome Destiny Hernandez, tribal member of the Payaya family of the Tāp Pīlam Coahuiltecan Nation, founding member of, and I'm sorry, let's see here, to perform the fancy shawl dance, the most recent contemporary style of dance in the powwow circles, and it is a symbol of feminism.
Five seconds.
All right. Incredible, beautiful, powerful, right? One more round of applause, please, for Destiny. I just want to keep saying, folks, acknowledging the blessing of what this morning is for us. The blessing of community, the blessing of dance and performance, and some beautiful words are going to be coming to us right now as well. Again, thank you, Destiny, for sharing Native American performance culture with us this morning. Next, I'd like to welcome Tribal Council Leader and Elder Ray Hernandez forward to read the land acknowledgement and to offer greetings from the Tāp Pīlam Coahuiltecan Nation.
No, this is like a deja vu for me. I shot my first bow and arrow here at Playland Park when I was back in the 50s. When I was brought here by a school program to the Buttercross and came across the street. Wound up getting a job there in the little bow and arrow thing. They got upset with me because I kept popping all those balloons because I got pretty good with it. Anyway, it's wow, that was about 60, almost 60 some odd years ago. I'm grateful also for my granddaughter, Yvette, Destiny, I'm sorry. Yvette's my daughter, my firstborn. My children, my grandkids for enduring the hardships of learning the culture and the strictness that came with it and the importance of it. And I'm grateful that there's 2-3 generations behind us now that we know that things are going to get better. Also, just to know that I was a high school dropout, and all through the process, I never made a good grade in history only because I was raised by my grandparents that were born in the 1870s. And they witnessed history firsthand, just as the fathers and the parents that they grew up with that came from the 1811 got to witness the independence from Spain, the Battle of the Alamo, the Civil War, the hardships, understanding that our families entrusted our culture to the church as the first Catholics, the first cowboys here in Texas, the vaqueros, and until recently realized that one of my grandfathers, Plácido Hernandez, in our family, served for Spain in the American Revolutionary War. People didn't realize that San Antonio contribute that part of our history 100 years before we became a state. And it's unfortunate they don't teach that in school. Really is. And those are the things that I had learned from my grandparents, much of the history. And when I try to argue with the teachers, I always wound up not doing really good. So eventually I dropped out of school, went to Vietnam. And like I said, my whole life started out from the cotton fields to the dishwasher to here in San Antonio, to going to Vietnam. It was a cultural shock to me, being people that I never been around. And it got me started in understanding the importance of education. Came back, got my GED, attended St. Phillips, and I also came to San Antonio College. Wound up getting my associates and became a police officer. Retired. And I realized that the things in growing up were so important and were missing in the culture with my kids. And I dedicated back in the 80s when I left the police department back into the community. And we said, our generation, my generation, is the last generation that grew up with families from the 1800s. And our culture is, I don't know how to say it without being offensive, but it's being hijacked, Hispanicized. And even though we have that integration, we never basically have been given or shown the contributions in the educational system that go back to all those contributions and sacrifices and being veterans and serving. And somehow it has been omitted and it has been transferred to everything else but the Native American contribution. So in the 80s, we made what we call a palabra. That means a word. That means we give our word. And it was 5 of the families that I grew up with. out here in San Antonio that we vowed to, instead of chasing a dream with the government, that we focus with our kids and grandkids and the future generations for what little things that we knew about our culture, the language, the dance, and of course, you know, this dance right here. This is what's beautiful about the younger generations. They learn how to evolve and make it their own and bring in the tradition and the meaning of it. And so that's one of the things that we come to understand and realize. We have to stop being so hard on ourselves as a Native people and trying to stay and live in the 1800s and come to the realization that even our language evolves, just like the English language. From the colonialists to now, they wouldn't understand what the hell we're talking about most of the time. So it evolves. We as a people have evolved and we have integrated, and others have integrated into our communities. And it's not unlikely to see what we call an admixture of maybe sometimes Polish, sometimes Spanish, sometimes African Americans, from people that became part of our community. We have our own acknowledgement. And the one thing and the beauty about our community is we don't look at us as being different. You know, this blood quantum and this casta system that had been indoctrinated into our culture was a poison, because we're all children of God. And we have no control over who our children and our grandchildren and the future generations are going to marry. And that should not eliminate them their right to which their roots come from. That is a given. And we should always be proud. So with that, I just want to say a little bit about my personal feelings, and I'll behave, and I'll try to get down to what I need to be speaking about. Tawaha Hionami Tuche Naptu. Good morning. Tiil Menam, good morning to all my relations. Before we begin this proceedings, Tāp Pīlam tribal community of the San Antonio Mission, South Texas and Northeastern Mexico would like to acknowledge and pay our respect to the traditional indigenous people of this land for which we stand, the Pajalates. That's who we are, the Pajalates. We're also known as Coahuiltecans. Coahuiltecans is from Coahuila and Texas. That's that admixture. It was one and the same. It was our homeland. Our homeland extended all the way from northeastern Mexico, which is Tamaulipas, Nuevo León, Coahuila, and here in South Texas. These are the lands for which they say we were hunters and gatherers. I say we were seasonal people that, not quite nomadic, but knew where the seasons and the things grew that were food to our bodies. And that's how we evolved for thousands of years. Not my saying, that was done by Texas A&M that turned out and decided, and not decided, but investigated back when they were doing the Apple White Project, and found out that our families go back 10,000 years, the same families that were excavated in 1967 at the Mission San Juan, where they were removed and basically sold to the Texas Historical Commission for studying, because they wanted to know what their diets were. It was obvious that there was no Popeyes and Church's Chicken around that time, so I don't know what they possibly could have learned other than it was just for whatever reasons. But to our families, it was a desecration. And that happened in 1967 when I was serving in Vietnam. That right there was a turning point for me, because now I understood what my grandparents were telling me about when they witnessed the excavations and the destructions when they built Santa Rosa Hospital over our family cemeteries, and at the Alamo, Mission Valero, where they put in utilities and disrespected the remains of over 1,300 of our family members. And I'm talking about our grandparents, uncles, aunts, and children. They're more than just ancestors. These were families. These were the first Catholics. And so that became something much personal, that I realized that if we didn't start speaking up and start educating ourselves, not based on the research done by the prior scholars, because they kept repeating themselves, going back to references. We started going into the archives, the old archives. And back then, it was all with microfilm. You want to talk about wishing we had computers back then? So that was a hard, long journey. And what we found, and with the help of Texas A&M Austin Toms, he was able to determine and say, wow, this is amazing find. I said, we've always been here. When have people said that we were extinct? Did they ever bother to go to the missions on a Sunday morning and see the masses and see us gather there? And, you know, it's, we were terrible marketing people and certainly not very good at using our culture to as a display. It's never been about a display. It's not about us being something beyond, except that we are grateful that we're here and that we have somehow been able to be part of this 260-year experiment that has gotten us to where we are. All people. It's coming around. And the thing is that it's a baby nation. And this process has to involve the telling of the truth, even the bad things that we don't want to hear. Because through that learning of that process and through the educational system of being honest and truthful based on archival records and oral history of the actual traditions, and understanding the contributions of all families, of all cultures that made sacrifices as we evolved, how far we have come to this point. And now it's getting dangerous. I'm over here 75 years old and I'm seeing, and I don't like what I see. I don't like what I see. When I see a first-time politician tell me, saying publicly, we're going to take our nation back, first generation born here, whose families never contributed in the military or sacrificed and got rich, and to say we're going to take our country back, it becomes offensive, becomes hurtful, becomes unnecessary. And we've lost so much as a people, and there has been a lot of sacrifices from a lot of cultures, many cultures, that had to work their way through this process. And we're getting there. But it has to be with honesty, it has to be with truth, and it has to be with respect. And character is not just a word. Oath is just not something you say. We displayed the meaning of that oath when we did this back in the 80s and gave our word that we were going to sacrifice for our communities and for the future generations to be able to somehow or another survive and to be the one to tell our stories and to work with the educational system. So with that, I just want to acknowledge Anastasio and Rafaela, my grandparents, for all their sacrifice in raising me and teaching me our family's culture and history. In the beginning, as in the present, this land in which we stand and where we gather here today, it is known in our community as Yanawana. Yanawana in our language means the water spirit of life. Doesn't mean refreshing waters like people say. You know, those come from those that have understand it. That's right across the street out here in Conner Words. That's where the creation of our story starts. The blue hole, Yanawana, creation of life. And y'all, this is all here. Our families were all here. The Payayas, Pajalates, Jarames, all those families. And the Spanish did an amicable job by recording it, but unfortunately, they put all those family names as nations. You know, that's quite a few hundred nations, you know, but we're all the same speakers. We all share the same cultures, clans. And this Yanawana, the water spirit of life, it flows from the womb of Mother Earth. Juan Pupaco. That means that's where the womb of the water breaks and it comes into the earth. You know, it's only the woman that gives life based on our culture, the way we understand it. I'm not trying to preach it on that, but that's our story. So we tried to keep it the way it is. And it flows, like I said, and it flows from the womb of Mother Earth, Juan Pupaco, from where our creation is born by Potopatana. That is the creating spirit of life. I'll share a little bit about it so you have an understanding, but that's where the blue feather ahinga bird, the water bird, comes out of the water and it drops its droplets into the earth from where we're born, all around this area. And so Popopatana is the creation spirit of life. As a lineal descendant and a cultural preservation, we would like to show our respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, past and present elders, for their sacrifices and the contributions to the city of San Antonio, the state of Texas, and the United States of America. Indigenous people of these lands, our families have lived, survived, and evolved since the beginning of time and into the present. Our families have never seceded. Our traditions, our culture, nor our homelands, and our families' quest for a more perfect and equal union for all its citizens of this government. You know, for me personally, a service to my country is just this. I take it with a lot of pride. Even though I didn't agree with the war, I gave an oath when I took that oath. And sometimes our own government does foolish things, like during that period back in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of people that were drafted and many guys didn't want to serve. But you know, it's our country. They took the oath, they put on the uniform, and they made the sacrifice. And it divided the country back then to where people didn't want to, and for whatever reason. But there was laws that if you did not take that oath and serve, you would lose certain rights as a citizen. And when we came back, we were treated pretty nasty. It was unfortunate times. It was scary times, just like we're feeling today. And with all the good intentions of a president trying to do what was right, he violated the oath of our people, the ones that served, by pardoning all those that went off to Canada without having any consequences for violating. And to us veterans, got a lot of veterans that didn't want to go, but served, that are up on that wall. Their families didn't get pardons. Those guys didn't get pardons. But when you have laws on the books, and if they're unpopular, they need to be changed. But when they're there, you can't be selective of how you use those laws. They have to be applied in a good way. I wanted to say that because I feel that it's important for some of the educators and the younger people to understand that somehow or another, we're blessed to live in this country, this nation. Even with all the hardships and all the things that our families have endured, we're here. We're here now. And we don't want to go away. And we want our story to be incorporated into the educational system based on archival records, family histories, and to promote the contributions, you know, so that people around the United States understand that just because we're from Texas and they say, whoa, this was all Mexico. Mexico existed here for 15 years, from 1821 to 1836. Prior to this was New Spain. And so I want to share that in that way. And our family wants to offer our gratitude and thanks for the contributions of the Alamo College District for the educational services and for the development of all and present and future generations. May God bless you. Ciao, manam. Thank you.
Elder Ray, thank you so much for the wisdom and the blessing you've offered us with the land acknowledgement and your history. Quick note, the food is arriving here. We'll have it ready and set up just before we end. On your table, there is little items in it. Those are actually wildflower seeds. Those are for each of you to take with you. They are local and indigenous to the area in which we live on. So now I'd like to proceed to the meat, or I'm vegan, so the tofu of today's conversation. And I'd like to invite Dr. Valerie White, President of the District Staff Senate, to introduce our panels this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I feel I have absolutely nothing to say after what we just heard, and I'm extremely humbled. I would love to just have an opportunity to just sit with you and just listen. But for the moment, the District Staff Senate strives to create an environment for all employees of the Alamo College District, which is characterized by fair treatment of staff, open communication, personal accountability, professionalism, trust, and mutual respect. We cannot begin this mission without first honoring and recognizing the tremendous gift this land is to everyone who works and lives here, as we've just heard. So today, as we take steps forward, amplifying the voices and the identity of the Native American women or people in general, and honor this land, let's cultivate partnerships. Let's commit to champion inclusion by supporting heritage celebrations. So I thank you all for being here today. Let's become lifelong learners in diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice. Let's be intentional in our support of historically racialized or marginalized populations. And so on behalf of the Executive Staff Senate, which I am president as well, thank you for supporting the event. And I do invite you to reach out to us if you would like to participate. I would like to take the time to introduce to you and to honor Liz Coronado Castillo, who is a queer Chicana higher education professional, a storyteller, a playwright, and poet who has devoted her career to serving first-year students from historically excluded populations. In 2021, she was named one of the 10 National Outstanding First-Year Student Advocates by the University of South Carolina's National Resource Center for the first-year experience and students in transition. And what I've seen and grown to love and appreciate about Liz is just that big heart that she carries with her. She's a woman who is welcome and opening of all, and I appreciate the ability to call you my friend. Please give her a hand as she comes forward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not as tall. All right, so I have the honor and the privilege of introducing our panelists today who are strong, wise, resilient women. We have Destiny Hernandez, who is a tribal member of the Payaya family of the Tāp Pīlam Coahuiltecan Nation. She is 12th generation lineal descendant to San Antonio. Destiny is the operations manager at the American Indians in Texas at the Spanish Colonial Missions, a nonprofit organization. She has worked in the nonprofit field for 2.5 years. Destiny also contributes to the theater arts department there with her professional stylization of using movement to convey stories and ideas of her Native American background. In addition, Destiny is pursuing her law degree at the University of Texas, San Antonio. She is passionate about cultivating a healing environment, works actively in the community to promote mental health, and is diligent about revitalizing her heritage. Pajalate. Everyone, Destiny. Next is Brenda Pacheco. Brenda is a proud lineal descendant of 2 Mission Native American tribes. Brenda is a lifelong resident of San Antonio's South Side community. And a special note here, Her childhood residence was located about 20 feet from the back wall of San Jose Mission. And in the 1970s, her family was the last family in her community displaced under eminent domain. Brenda retired from Capital Group American Funds in 2013. Since that time, she has spent almost every waking moment as a member of various boards and committees. She currently serves on a nonprofit group called the American Indians in Texas at the Spanish Colonial Missions, the Alamo Museum Planning Committee, and the Whitty Museum Exhibit Committee. She was appointed by Bexar County District Attorney to serve on a community advisory panel and the City of San Antonio's South Community Area Land Use Planning Team. Everyone, Brenda. And we have Linda Jimenez. For more than 35 years, Linda has been utilizing her knowledge and experience to facilitate and train in countless settings with a wide array of participants from Canada to Argentina, in metropolitan centers and in rural towns across the hemisphere. Her specialty is working with organizations and groups that are struggling with internal issues and need a facilitator who will help them find their ground, release harmful behaviors and attitudes, establish sound working principles and approaches, and engage them in innovative problem solving and action planning. She has extensive experience in substance abuse prevention and trained professionals and community members in the principles and practices of community-based primary prevention in the US, Canada, Latin America, and Africa. Everyone, welcome, Linda. Let's get started with our discussion. Can we please talk about having your language and your identity denied? Can we start there?
Sure.
Let's go.
Testing 1, 2. Oh, there we go. Si ilmanam tawahayo nami tuchem naptu. Good morning, all my relations. I am Destiny Hernandez, as you introduced. Thank you very much. I am very grateful to be here and share this heritage, history, and education for everyone. You know, I'm glad that you opened up with that because yesterday I happened to be on Wikipedia and I was just curious what it is that is written on Wikipedia about Coahuiltecans and Pajalate language, right? And it says we're extinct. It says that we don't exist anymore.
Can you tell?
And, you know, also being a student at UTSA, I've had many challenges with my professors of what the narrative is in history. And, you know, as they say that the story is told by the victors. And so I think that there's a lot of work that we need to do. And, you know, this is an example of how we can start making an impact and creating change and trying to share our story as well. And it's hard because we face that identity crisis of not being American enough to be American, or not being Mexican enough to be Mexican, or not being Indian enough to claim that we're Native American. And so that's a struggle daily, right? But I am grateful to have been born into this. And the man speaking earlier is my grandfather, Raymond Hernandez. And I'm very grateful that I'm sitting here today and I know my history. I know my lineage. I was brought up in ceremonies and I'm learning our language. You know, we're revitalizing our language, which is proof that it's not extinct. And it just feels good to be living that life, walking that road, and helping others be reconnected as well with their roots, because that's something that I hear a lot when we talk about Native American Heritage Month, or even during Hispanic Heritage Month. there are so many people who identify as Mexican or Latinx, and I'm not saying that it's not wrong to claim that. What your identity is what it is. That's what you want to identify as. But a lot of people claim that because they don't know about their Native American history and the lineage, and they weren't brought up in it, So I am very grateful that I think it's a rich history to have. And I really want to just pass it down to the future generations and keep the culture alive. And that's a lot of the work that we do at American Indians in Texas, the nonprofit organization that I'm employed at, which was also, founded by the tribal council members of the Tāp Pīlam Coahuiltecan Nation. And we do a lot of work, a lot of good work in the community. It's not only helping the Native American population, we help people all over San Antonio, and it's very important work to do. We need that nurturing and the compassion and the healing. And we were disconnected, and because of being disconnected, that has impacted us greatly. The genocide and the erasure and that identity crisis that I was talking about earlier. And then on top of it, having to deal with the daily struggles, right? So it's not just the genocide and the erasure that we're dealing with, but it's the intergenerational trauma that we inherited and everything that our life experiences on a personal basis too. We're unlayering a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we're working through, but I am grateful that I'm able to share dance, that I'm able to share songs and language, and just sitting on this panel today, being able to sit here and share this with you all, because I feel like that's medicine. I feel like it's medicine for everyone in here. It's medicine for me. It's medicine for my grandfather. It's medicine for the future, my unborn children. They don't even know it yet. So there's a lot to be said on how it impacts, and I can go on and on, but we can move on to the next question, or if you want me to
Brenda or Linda,
continue.
do you want to add something?
One of the things that, before we go any further, I just want to introduce Mickey Killian, who is, if Mickey, you want to stand up? He's also a member of our tribal council. Thank you for being here, Mickey. One of the things that happens so much with us, with almost any group that's in the United States, is that you lose your language. And one of the reasons that is, from the perspective of the dominant culture, one of the reasons that's so important is because your language says a lot about your worldview. The way you talk molds the way you think, and the way you think molds the way you talk. And because of that, you have a certain worldview that's based on your language. When they take your language away, they take away your identity, they take away a viewpoint, they take away a sense of belonging, they take away a way of communicating that's special to the people that are closest to you. And one of the important things, and Destiny was alluding to it earlier about people not knowing, people don't even know that there was a native language here. Not only, that people were here, but that there was a language that we spoke. And people think that Spanish is our first language, but Spanish is our second language. For those of us who are native, that's our second language. English is our third language. Most of us don't have that first language anymore because it's been systematically eradicated. And that's not just us. That's been a process that's been going on for centuries in this country. And I think it probably happens in other countries too, but I know here, the first thing you do when you begin to assimilate, I guess is the right word, is that you don't teach your children their language, whatever that language is, because it makes them different. When my dad was growing up in Floresville, there was a Mexican school, and he would go to the regular school, and then on Saturdays they had Spanish. That's how he learned to read and write Spanish. They had a separate school for it. They never had that for us. When we came into the missions, what they did was they didn't let us, they didn't teach us how to read or write our own language. They taught us how to read and write and speak Spanish. And Spanish was the dominant language. And Mickey was telling me earlier today that in the 1850s, the church actually had an edict saying that you could no longer recognize the native languages. And it's a process that happens for all immigrants, but we weren't immigrants. We were here and we got denied that. And so one of the things that we are doing now as part of what AIT and American Indians in Texas is doing that Destiny referred to is we're recovering our language. There are very, very, very few speakers of our language. And so what we've done is we've had a process where we're looking at the documents and trying to figure out things and then talking to native speakers as well. And we have one member of our tribe who actually went to Arizona to get his master's in linguistics so that he could come back and bring that language back for us, because one of the professors there is one of the few people who actually speaks the language. And like I say, you know, when we're working through things, there's just a way of looking at stuff that happens because of your language. And when they take that away from you, it's debilitating. They always replace it with something else, but it's not your language. It becomes your language after several generations, but it's not at the initial state. And that opportunity to speak in your native way gives you a connection that you don't have otherwise. And if you don't even know that you had a native language, you're even further removed than what you would have been. Up there.
So then I'll finish with the only Native American language I ever heard was on TV. Cowboys and Indians, John Wayne. And because I now have joined the organization, I no longer watch those movies, most of all because they're offensive. But everyone in this room, every one of you, in my mind, in my eyes, an educator. Whether you work as an admin secretary, it doesn't matter. I am asking you today to remember, if you remember anything, that Spanish was not the first language in this area. Because I and Rudy heard an educator, a doctor at another place, education place, tell an audience of young students that where you stand this very moment, you should be very proud because Spanish was the first language. And I just almost fell to the ground. So if you remember anything, please remember that when you talk with younger folks, when you talk with your children, that you set the story straight now, beginning now, because no, Spanish was not the first language of this country. And I am going to learn the language through our organization eagerly, because the only word I know now is Paletsam, and it means thank you. But I am very eager because now I have an opportunity to do that. So I can't wait till the day where we can advertise to you all that we're having classes to teach you the true Native American language. Thank you.
I'll sign up. Okay, the next series of questions, I got 3, but they center around land. Okay, this is a theme. So why are land acknowledgements so important? What does land back mean? And what does it mean to own land versus take care of the land?
Brenda, I know you want to talk about that one.
So because I'm reminded by many very wise women, sometimes the concept of a term or a statement is different. And I'm learning that every day. So land acknowledgement to me before joining the organization meant that you were acknowledging that the land belonged to someone else first, and it was taken away unjustly. unjustly. So as mentioned in my bio, my family was the last family to live on what I call the San Jose compound, San Jose Mission. And that piece of land, that small piece of land in that home or the land had been willed to my father. And so he's very fortunate. As a young man, he gets hired at Kelly Air Force Base. So he makes a decent living, right? He can support us and we have insurance. And so then the next step was to own a nice home. And although I thought our home was nice, but it was a casita, face it. It was a casita in that area around San Jose Mission. We all lived in casitas. But Daddy, because he worked at Kelly, had really good credit. And so a bank was willing to give him a loan, a mortgage to build a house. And so we built a house, 3-bedroom, 2.5 baths, large living room because we had lots of parties, right? It was our dream come true. We had it built in 1970. All the other houses around us were still casitas, and that's okay. It didn't matter to us, but he was able to attain the so-called American dream. That's what it was in our family. 1970. In 1971, we get a letter from Texas Parks and Wildlife. It says, you got to go. We're going to build a park in a parking lot in your neighborhood. And so you got to go. We've condemned the property. You don't have a choice. Daddy had me call them and say, you must have made a mistake. We just built this house. You just gave us permits to build this house. What do you mean we got to go? And they said, doesn't matter. Eminent domain. You got to go. So fast forward many years, and an adult and an older woman, I realized who my Native American ancestors are, and that we actually owned land in that area back, way back, because I have a document that says that my ancestors and my tribe were there at least in 1789. And we also have a deed that says that my Arguellas family owned some property way back then around the mission. And my first thought was, wow, they took my land back then and they've done it again. What are the odds that that would happen twice in my family? But that's what land acknowledgement means to me, which is not the same as it means to everybody else. I'm becoming aware now that land acknowledgement means that the land belongs to all of us, and we must all be stewards of the land no matter where you live, and you must take care of it, and you must foster it, and you must develop it. I realize that now, but to someone in a family like mine who never talked about being Native American, who never talked about the language, who hardly even wanted to admit that they had Indian ancestry, and for obvious reasons, we're all adults in this room. We know why everyone wanted to admit that they were Native American back in the 50s and 60s, but never talked about it. I am learning so much now that I've become part of the organization. And so I will be forever indebted to AIT that they asked me to apply for a board position, because now I feel like a real student again, a real student. I'm learning every day. And all I want to do now is share what I'm learning. So whenever you want to listen, just ask, because I'm willing to talk. Okay.
Now let's, Brenda, we love having you on our board. You're a real treat. You are a gift. And I wanted to touch on taking care of the land, because that's something that's very important to us. And there was an experience that I had recently for the last medicine wheel ceremony. We have a medicine wheel ceremony at every change of season. And at the fall equinox, we went to the medicine wheel, and we were not able to do a fire for our ceremony because there was a burn ban in effect. And to us, we saw that as a message from the earth. You know, this is how we receive these messages, this symbolism. Like, everything in our culture has a meaning. And the fact that we weren't able to have our fire, we had to modify the way that we prayed in this ceremony. And, you know, we have the intention and we have the prayer, and we know that our prayers will get answered. But the mere fact that we weren't able to do the fire because of how the land is being disregarded and not nurtured and not taken care of, it shows where in another way that we need to make change. We need to take care of the land better. And I mean, there's so many things happening. There's people who say climate change isn't real, and clearly it is. I mean, we had a snowstorm here a year and a half ago, and we're probably going to have another one coming up in February. And there's things that are happening. There's messages that are being sent to us, and we need to listen. We really need to listen. We need to give back to Mother Earth. And something that Brenda said too, that the land was ours. We inhabited the lands, yes, but we see the land as a spirit. It's something that we take care of, and it's a communal process. It's reciprocal, where the land gives to us and we give to the land. It's an offering. It's not take. And in today's society, with everything that's happening, I mean, it's a lot of take that we're doing. And so I just wanted to touch on that a bit and try and raise some awareness around that topic, because a lot of people really claim that climate change is not real. And if we keep going in this direction, none of us may exist.
We may really be extinct. I would like to say a little bit about this concept of land ownership. Ownership of the land is a concept that was brought by the Europeans. Native people typically don't believe that they own the land. And it's a really hard concept to grasp given the way things are today. And there are people who got Spanish land grants, where the Spanish in Europe said, you can have this land over here regardless. They didn't know who was on the land. They didn't know anything about it. It was just, they just gave it to them. And there are people from whom those lands were stolen. And they've made attempts to get that land back because it was given to them in 1700 or whenever. And that whole idea of ownership, there's a member of our tribe who has a place out in Elmendorf. And they had a wedding out there recently, and he was talking about taking care of the land and stuff. And he was telling me about how he was taking care of the trees and the things he was doing to make sure that when they put up this tent for the wedding, that they didn't cut the trees except where they absolutely had to, because it was his job to take care of that land. And that he knew that he didn't really own it in the sense that it belonged to him. It was his property. It was his responsibility. It was his place to take that land and nurture it and do what he could to keep it alive and well, to keep those spirits happy on that land. And that's regardless of what you think about. I mean, I own my own house, right? But I don't really own my own house. The bank owns my own house. But nevertheless, my responsibility is to take care of that land and to make sure that, the way that I think about it is to make sure that those spirits that are on it, because all of us, there's spirits on all the land. If nothing else, there's animal spirits that are there from those animals that have been on that land forever. I had a huge argument with my neighbor because I put up a big bird feeder, and she was very upset because my yard was full of birds and they were pooping on her patio. And, my thing was, well, they were here before we were. And, I'm not going to stop them. But I ended up taking the bird feeder down because I didn't want her to get so upset. She was like really upset about this. But it's that kind of thing. It's that you take care of that land. It's not like a piece of property that you have, that you own. It's different. It has a spirit. It has a need. It has a way to give back to you if you take care of it. And that's the kind of thing that Destiny's talking about, is that and it's something that we need to do at a much larger scale, because, you know, we're at the top of the food chain. If the food chain goes, what happens to us? And the food chain is going. There are species that are going extinct every single day. I mean, hundreds and thousands of them, like lots of them. So it's real important to keep the land, to keep that relationship with the land, and to understand that it's Mother Earth. That's what we call it. That's why we call it that. Okay.
Thank you. So you've already touched upon it just a little bit, but can you talk about a little bit more about what you are doing, your specific group, and other groups to get back what you've been denied?
Loaded question. I had
Lots
to
of
take a
stuff.
deep breath before that one. Oh, goodness. There's so much that we're doing. And you know, it's funny because over there at AIT, at the nonprofit that we're all referring to, there's about 30 employees, and all of us right now are doing a lot of work because people are booking us for Native American Heritage Month, right? And that's 31 days of the year. And one of my colleagues and I were saying, you know, it would be nice if we spread it out a little bit more. If it's not just the 30 to 31 days, right, that are in November, but if we can just spread this out, because why does it only have to be a month that we are acknowledging Native American heritage and other heritage as well? You know, why is it only 1 month of the year that certain heritage gets? Why does that happen? And so right now, we're doing a lot of panel discussions. We're doing presentations. We are educating, you know, at UTSA, as I was talking about earlier. I've had to challenge my professors, and it's gotten to a point where I feel like I'm the educator. And I'm thinking, hey, you know, I'm paying a lot of money to be a student here. And I'm teaching you. So good thing though, I will say that the professors that I have encountered, you know, they've been very receptive and open to learning, and it has opened up a whole new path to where they're actually having discussions about modifying the history books and how they're choosing to teach the history. I am taking another class this year with the professor that I had last year, and she was one of the ones that I challenged in a good way. I didn't, you know, verbally attack her or anything, but I just was like, look, you know, I take offense to you saying that we ate dirt and that we're extinct and we don't exist anymore. I mean, the things that you're still teaching in this class is from like elementary school, things that I have learned in elementary school. And I'm on a college level now, and you're telling me things that I learned in elementary about being hunters and gatherers and nomadic and unsophisticated people. And, you know, that's false. If we were so unsophisticated, how could we have a language? How could we have the agriculture that we have and the aqueducts? I mean, how could any of that happen if we weren't sophisticated people? It's just that it's not aligned with how European mindset thinks of what sophisticated is and what it is not, right? It's just, it was not aligned with what the colonizers were participating in and their religion and what they brought here. That's what they thought was sophisticated. And because we were doing other things, because we were taking care of the land, because we were having ceremonies, because we were communal, because we took care of each other in different ways than them, all of a sudden, that means that we're not sophisticated people and we were just sitting around eating dirt when they got here. Another thing too, sorry, I'm about to go off. Another thing too.
Can you tell she's her grandfather's granddaughter?
I was thinking the same thing. Yes.
That's the Hernandez DNA,
It's the Indian DNA.
the
yeah,
Indian DNA.
right.
And oh gosh, okay. On Indigenous Peoples Day, I was on Facebook and, just scrolling, taking a break, taking a mental break, which I don't know why I would go on Facebook to take a mental break, but I did. And I saw this beautiful artwork that a Native American artist shared. And it was a painting of a woman with the earth, and she was a Native woman. And it was just saying, Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. And it said land back. And then I made the mistake of reading the comments. I read a comment from someone that said, well, if you want your land back, why don't you just take it with your bows and arrows? And I was just so taken aback that people still have this mentality. People are still saying this, still. And I'm just like, what more do we need to do? Like, beyond existing, beyond sharing our culture, our heritage, beyond doing these panel discussions, beyond everything. I mean, are we really still functioning in society with that mindset?
Yes.
It's ridiculous to me. So yes,
I'm
that
sorry.
was very upsetting. Sorry, go ahead. I'll pass it.
As I said, still learning every day, our executive director, Ramon Vasquez, many times says very profound things, makes very profound statements. I don't always give him credit, but he does. And he told me very early on, we were talking about a particular program that is very successful at AIT. It's the fatherhood program. And it basically deals with young men, older men who, I use the word broken. I don't mean to offend anybody, but that are broken, that have been a part of the criminal justice system and are working to become better people, right? And so as a board member, I want to know about all the programs and how much we're investing. And so he and I had a conversation that day, and he told me something. He said, all lives are sacred, all lives. And I said, well, yeah. He said, no, you're not listening to me. He said, all lives are sacred. So even those people that perhaps you might think less of because they've been in some sort of trouble are sacred. So he said, we believe in second chances. And so this typical Hispanic, used to look like a Barbie Mexican girl, thought, oh no, all my life I colored in the lines. All my life I followed all the rules, didn't break the law. And now we're going to invest in this type of program. And he said, Brenda, we do it very well. We have a national model we follow, and we take these men, young and old, and we help them come back to a place where they understand who they are, why they were having issues, and then go out and become what society says are productive citizens, so that they can be a better husband, they can be a better man, they can be a better father, a better community member. He goes, our program is very, very successful. And I sat back and I thought, I claim to be a community activist. I claim to be a giver. I claim to be a person who always wants to help. But then that means everybody, Brenda, not just people you pick and choose to help, not just because they've always followed the rules. You need to give and back to everyone. You need to understand that that's what that really means. So I consider it personally one of our most successful programs, because the staff works diligently and works with the courts in San Antonio at identifying these men, and they don't have to be men of color, any man that needs some help finding his way. Would the old Brenda have wanted to invest it in that? Heck no. Heck no. But now that I'm understanding our true way, which means that everybody is important, every life is sacred, even the bugs at the office. This is when I knew I knew that I wasn't maybe not a fit for AIT. There was a spider and I was going to step on it, and Destiny almost jumped out of her skin. No, 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 no. I said, well, what are you going to do then? She goes, well, I'm going to catch it and I'm going to take it outside. And she followed that spider around the office. And that's when I thought, maybe I'm not a fit, because these people, I don't know, but that's the way they are. And then I couldn't ever go in the office and I couldn't say that something hurt, my elbow hurt, because someone wanted to give me some natural remedy. And I'd say, I'm going to Walgreens and get pain medicine. Okay. So it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for me because I just question daily whether I'm a fit. But once you all begin to understand the reason behind, we just don't make stuff up. The reason behind how they believe, it all begins to make sense. So I hope that we can share some of those things with you when you call our office or go to our website and read the information about all that we do. Our staff is incredibly busy every day because this 1 month is not all we do. They are busy all of the time, all the time, but always willing to share and talk.
The fatherhood campaign that she's talking about is one of, I think there's a handful of them nationally. And we've been funded to do that work for, 20 years probably. And we've been what do they call it? When you break, when you groundbreaking stuff, right? Because we use a cultural model to do this, to help these men get into a better place about who they are as men and what it is to be a man and all that kind of assistance. But we also have a 7th generation doula program that works with women who are pregnant and want to have a child in a more natural way. We also do a huge diaper distribution service. I think Ramon said it was like 175,000 diapers last year. I mean, it was this enormous amount of diapers.
And during that program, during COVID, I didn't want our staff to do it because I said, no, they're going to be exposed. I don't want them to get sick. But Ramon said, no, we are going to do that distribution. So they would take a stick or something long and the person would drive up and they put it on the curb so that these mothers could have diapers.
One of that was another thing I was going to say. It was during COVID. One of the things we had was community action teams, which reached out to all these different people in the community that we knew needed food, medication, whatever it was that they needed, and we were actually interacting with them and providing those services for them in ways that if it hadn't been there, who knows what would have happened. So it's as both Destiny and Brenda have said, it's a year-round program. It's not just during Indigenous Month, right? Because people exist year-round and problems exist. We all need support one way or another, whether it's dance and ceremony or it's food and services, but we need it year-round. And one of the other pieces, we have a very exceptional executive director at AIT. He's a real good relationship builder, and he's built relationships with Native American organizations all around the country. And one of the ones that he helped co-found many, many years ago was the National Urban Indian Family Coalition. And they've done a lot of work working with urban Indian families. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that San Antonio has the 10th largest Indian population in the country. And a lot of people think of Indians and they're on reservations, right? Well, that's not true anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. A lot of the Native Americans, probably the majority of Native Americans now live in urban areas. They don't live on the reservation anymore. And so a lot of what we can do is to provide services for them, even if it's, whatever kind of services they need, we'll do what we can. And then also just to make connections with people and give them a place to come. We're setting up a cultural center, a Native American cultural center. That's going to be the first one here in San Antonio. There's just a lot of stuff that AIT has been able to do because the tribal council many years ago decided that it would be helpful to have a nonprofit arm so that they could do some of the things and provide some of these services. And to also, one of the other pieces that nobody's mentioned yet, at least I don't think you have, is the actual, we have a huge archive, Rudy, that like Arsa back there is working with the archives, and he's working with the all the Alamo colleges, I think, or several of the Alamo colleges, to do some work with those archives. We also have a program we're working on and in the process of developing some manuals, workbooks, coloring books, those kinds of things for children, so that talks about our heritage, and so that people can get to know on a little bit different level that we are here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the last piece, which is kind of, what is it? It's and still.
Yeah. So we will have time for one or two questions, but when we first all got together to discuss this panel, Brenda said something that was really, really important. And she said, still today, people don't know.
Which is exactly what Destiny was saying
Yeah.
earlier. Did you want to make another comment?
Your final thoughts. What do we need to know?
Well, before going there, you all need to know that on November 11th, we are holding an exhibit at our new location, 1616 East Commerce Street. It's an art exhibit of Ramon Vasquez y Sanchez, and he's also a member of the Tribal Council and one of the founders of American Indians in Texas. So that is open to the public. That's going to be the first time that we open the building to the public, and it's going to be a beautiful exhibit, November 11th. I can get some information to you all through Dr. Eric Castillo. And so, yeah, I just wanted to drop that in there too. And can you repeat that part again one more time so I can just get triggered?
Yeah. So Brenda said, still today, people don't know.
Still today, people don't realize, or maybe they don't care. I don't know. They don't realize
Little
that
both.
there are so many of us. There are so many of you in the audience who are native San Antonians, who have names that I know came from Native American lineage, because I live behind San Jose Mission. You still don't know that you could be a lineal descendant of two different tribal families, but you have to talk to your elders. You have to talk to your cousins. You need to talk to people who grew up in your neighborhoods, so you can begin to understand who you are. Do some research, perhaps, utilize Rudy de la Cruz and find out who you are, because it is so impactful to your identity when you know who you are. Because I didn't find out till late in life as an elderly woman. I did not know. It changes your life when you know beyond the shadow of a doubt where you came from. Still today, not even our leaders, our political leaders, understand the importance of this community, this Native American, American Indian, whatever you want to call yourself, community has done for the city of San Antonio. Still today, they don't understand that what we share, then they utilize to entice visitors, because we have so much culture, because we are willing to share. Still today, I don't think that the city recognizes the value of the Native American community. They just, I want to say, take us for granted and use us for this month. Okay, everybody wants to hear from us this month. And as Destiny said, we have stories to tell. We could tell all year long, 365.
Destiny, did you want to say something?
Still today.
Definitely, we are still here. And I think a lot of the narrative that is shared in San Antonio is, I'm not supposed to talk about the Alamo, huh? Well,
It's a John Wayne
let's
movie.
just say that, the Alamo has an Indian cemetery as well. And, our ancestors are buried there. I have a great grandfather that's buried there. And so a lot of people don't know that about the Alamo. They only know about the
the
victims,
battle.
about the battle. And, you know, our people built those missions as well.
Mm.
And they contributed to that, and it needs to be acknowledged.
Destiny mentioned that, you know, that we're a sophisticated people. We're an intelligent people. I just know that although those missions were built on the back of Native Americans, Inditos, I know they had something to do with the design, the architecture of those buildings.
Hmm.
I just know they do.
Yeah.
Well, the paint, the original paint that's on the missions is from rocks of this land. Some of the rocks develop like a clay that you mix with water, and that's what they use to paint the missions, as well as certain plants that created that blue, the indigo color. They use that as well to paint the missions too.
I want to point out that the cemetery, the Indian cemetery at the Alamo is a Catholic cemetery. It's not an Indian
Santo.
cemetery. The people that are buried there are Catholics, but that's a whole nother story. I just kind of want to wrap it up a little bit with two things. One is that although it gets presented and promoted that there's a competition here between Native Americans and African Americans and Italian Americans and all these different groups, the competition is false. It's something that's been created so that we don't unify, so that we don't come together. And one of the things that AIT has been doing for some time now is having, we have a whole Black-Brown coalition activities. And it's real important to remember that there is no competition. We're all here. We're all working together. We all need things, and we all have things that we can offer. The other thing too is that, you know, we're not, as Destiny said, we're not going anywhere. We're here. We've been here all along. Whether or not they've recognized it, that, you know, that's neither here nor there. The point is that we have been here. We continue to be here. We will be here. And we want to work together with people so that everybody gets their story. It's not, you know, the conquerors came, the colonizers came, and they founded San Antonio, but people were already here when the colonizers came. And this was not a discovery. This was an invasion, essentially. If they did it today, it would be considered an invasion. But it wasn't then, and it still isn't in many cases. But nevertheless, it is important for us to understand what our roots are. All of us understand what our roots are, that we've all probably lost a language, and that we all have something to gain by coming together and working together.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have time for like one or two questions. So who has a question? Yes, ma'am.
We have one now.
Yeah, there's multiple
Yeah,
powwows going
yeah.
on.
Several powwows, yeah. Now that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, we can share our
Yeah.
website with you. We
Mhm.
have our events listed on there, and it's not just our powwows. There's powwows all over San Antonio. There was one last weekend in Floresville, and there's a lot of powwows that
there's-
are going on.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then I think part of the question was, how do you keep track of your members? Yeah, how do you keep track?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we do is that we're organized in families and clans, and each clan or family keeps track of their members, and then that gets reported to the way that we do it basically is through our membership in the Native American Church. That's the vehicle that we use. But each family keeps track of their own members. And so people, when they come in, they come in as members of a particular clan or family.
One more question? Somebody have a question? All right. All
Great.
right. All right.
Can you make sure to repeat that on the mics so the people
Oh,
online
yeah,
can
sure.
hear you?
There's a powwow on November 12th in Austin.
And if I could just say something
Yes.
before we leave.
Always.
I just want to thank all of you,
Yes.
because you've been an amazing audience. You've been very attentive. I think that I'm a good reader of faces, and all of you seem like genuinely interested in what we were saying. And I know you didn't have to be here. So I want to thank all of you on behalf of our organization. I want to thank Eric, Dr. Eric Castillo, and Liz, because the first time we talked about what we wanted to talk about, it's almost like we had to just cut the phone off because there was so much to say and they were so interested in hearing our story. So as you can tell, many of us love telling our story. You know, you just need to pick up a phone and call, or we can give you a business card. But I want to thank you because I have had so much fun doing this.
Yes, thank you
Thank you very much.
Well, it is still morning, so good morning. Thank you again for hanging in. This has been a phenomenal conversation this morning. Again, the wisdom, the power, the blessing that the three of you have given, Destiny, Brenda, Linda, thank you so much. Ray, everybody who's participated in this event today. One of many things to come. Please keep an eye out on your events calendar. We do things regularly. We want to build community across the organization, but also here at DSO. So we are here to help support and bring education and awareness to our community here. Before we serve our delicious sweet meats, which is ground bison with blackberries and pecans, or pecans, however you say it. And then there's nopal salad and some tostadas and agua fresca. Before we get to that, I'd like to invite Dr. Flores, Chancellor Flores, to the front to give our closing remarks.
I don't know that there's anything left to say. That was just so moving. I was glad that I had time to be here this morning. I really want to thank colleagues, right? I want to thank Dr. Castillo, Eric. I want to thank Liz. Where'd you go, Liz? And everybody for coming together, working with Valerie, team, colleagues, and putting all of this together. Doctora Pulido, thank you for being here. As Secretary for our Board of Trustees, and in particular, friends and new faces and colleagues. And I think just speaking from lived experience, right? So as Linda and Destiny and Brenda mentioned in particular, and I know Maria in the back, it's just so important to understand who we are and where our folks and family members came from. And I think that's important about ourselves and that sense of affirmation, self-efficacy. And so we look forward to future discussions and engagements. And in particular, I think, as was noted earlier, we are who we are 365 days out of the year. And so we should celebrate who we are, our friends, family, and neighbors all year round. And so we hope to continue these discussions, not only this month, but every day of the year. So thank you all for being here and look forward to more conversations. Thank you.
All right, y'all hungry? Yeah, okay. Well, so we are unwrapping everything right now. So please, if you'd like, you can form a line. We have our wonderful folks from District Staff Senates and the Chancellor's Office helping to serve. If you're more than welcome to ask additional questions and come and greet our panelists as well. Thank you all so much.